Good morning, everyone. I guess at this point, this is a very, very late stream for us. Currently, 2 minutes late. We're not doing too bad. Usually, we go like 5 or 10 minutes, don't we? But we are fresh out of Kill Bill: The Whole Bloody Affair, which began at 6:30 p.m.
Oh yeah, it's quite a long
and
time ago.
I think there was a strange post-credit scene, which we'll talk about later on in the review.
Which we didn't even know was going to happen.
No, that was
Was it
the
like,
I joked about. Well, there kind of is a post-credit scene with Kill Bill. It's just like a little outtake. It's just like a couple of seconds long, but we actually got like a full. As I say, we'll talk about it. It was very, very strange. But Kill Bill: The Whole Bloody Affair. This has been something I never thought we'd ever get. To be honest, this was something that's been not even rumored. We knew it existed. It was like this super exclusive thing in Tarantino's own cinema, and only a few select people that have gone to a cinema have seen it. I never thought in a million years we'd ever get to see this cut. It was like, fingers crossed, hopefully one day we would. But it now seems like we might also get, hopefully, like a physical release of this thing as well. We know we're getting like a digital, it's going to be available on streaming and digital and whatnot. So I'm hoping the next step is like a 4K restoration or something like that, which would be really cool. Kill Bill: The Whole Bloody Affair. It's Volume 1 and Volume 2 edited together into one movie. Some new additional scenes in there. Some things are chopped out to make it flow as one film. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk whether we prefer the Volume 1, Volume 2 separate film split or whether we prefer it as one film. Stuff about like the new additional footage and just our opinions on Kill Bill. I always usually open these things with asking you when was the last time you watched Kill Bill, not counting obviously just coming out of cinema, but this is on heavy rotation for you. I feel like every time I voice note you or chat to you, I can hear this film in the background.
Yeah,
so
that was yeah. I think Kill Bill Volume 1 is the movie I've watched the most in my life.
Mhm.
I do generally think that. I mean, it's always been one of my favorite movies. It's weird to ever say anything's my favorite because that could change next year, or do you know what I mean? Or sometimes I'm like, yeah, but it's definitely in my top 3. Like,
Yeah.
it's definitely one of my all-time favorites, and like I say, it hands down is the movie I've seen the most. I mean, what was it? Was it last year? That I watched it. What was it, like 6 times in 1 week or something?
Sure,
And
yes,
it was like, yeah, and no, but that was 1 and 2 as well. But yeah, Volume 1 in itself is hands down one of my favorite movies. So I watched that, yeah, about 2 days ago. I think I had it on in the background. I can't remember what I was doing, but I had it on in the background. So yeah, Volume 1 is.
When you watch these, do you tend to just one and done it at Volume 1, or do you tend to always go on to Volume 2 as well?
Not always, but I did. Let's say last year I did go through a period of I was watching 1 and 2 together, but Volume 1 is mainly the one that I watch because I just love the fight scenes. I love the anime sequence. I love the sword fighting, and obviously there's a lot more of that in Volume 1. So that's what I watch it for. And so like the other night when I watched it, I did just watch 1. Yeah.
I know it does end on the cliffhanger when you are watching them as separate things, but there is. It sounds weird to say this when I talk about Kill Bill. It's such a nostalgic film for me because I watched this at a very young age. I watched this younger than I probably should have been to watch Kill Bill, but I turned out fine. We all turned out fine. So I watched this because I remember being excited for Kill Bill 2 to be released. So I must have seen Kill Bill 1 in like 2003, possibly early 2004, whenever it became available on home video. And I remember being in HMV, seeing the trailers, thinking it looked like the coolest shit I'd ever seen, and the very iconic look of Uma Thurman in the yellow jumpsuit and whatnot. I just seeing trailers. It was like an anime come to life.
Red jumpsuit in the second one because Volume 2 was
Yeah.
red. I thought, we're going to get a red jumpsuit.
And I remember just saying, like, I can't remember if it was my dad or my mum who bought it for me, but I was just like, oh, can I please have this film? And they're just like, yeah, sure. Took it up to the counter because obviously I couldn't buy it myself. And it's one of a few films that I remember just being completely blown away by, like, everything that I thought I knew about film in terms of structure, the stuff that you can get away with in the film, like the language, the violence and things like that. I hadn't seen anything like it before, so it was a complete awakening for me. I was hearing curse words that I'd never heard before. I was, some of the terminology and some of the things it delves into in the film, which is all very creepy and adult and weird, like I didn't know. So it was like a gateway into this whole area of film that I hadn't seen before. And the structure of it being really confused at the time as a 10-year-old because I was an idiot. Chapter 1, 2,
yeah,
thinking, what?
It took me a few watches as a kid because I watched it when I was really, really young. And it took me a few watches as a kid to understand it.
Yeah.
Like it did take a bit. Like I knew that she went around. Obviously, she made a list of these people she needed to kill. But I didn't really at first time I watched it, didn't understand who Bill was. I'm like, okay, but why is she killing him? And then I saw the second half. I think I don't know when I saw the second half, but I saw part of the second half. I think I saw the Massacre at Two Pines bit, obviously in the chapel. I saw that before I actually saw the whole movie. So when he comes on, it's like the whole he says that he's her dad. I thought, oh, okay, so he's like. It took me a few times of going through it to understand what they were, and as I say, as a young kid, and being like, you say, first is two, and I'm like, okay. And I remember discussing it with people. I was the only one that really liked it when I was a kid. Like I remember saying, "Oh, have you seen Kill?" Like because this is when I just first saw the first one. So, have you seen Kill Bill? And people were like, yeah. And people didn't really have much of a reaction. I'm like, it's so good. They're like, it's confusing. I'm like, but it's so good though. I was like, yeah, but the beginning is kind of in the middle and like that. And I was like, but it's so good. I didn't care. I just was like, yeah, but blood and colors and stuff. And I was like, this is so cool.
It was so unique as well because I mean you have a whole chapter that's an anime sequence, and then obviously the violence is the live action stuff. It is like a violent anime come to life, fully realized. And that scene was the scene that I'd always have to show my mates. Be like, oh, have you seen Kill Bill? Like it was one of those films where, similar to Saw, actually, both very violent. Now I think about it. It would be one of those films that I have to show all of my mates and just get more people seeing this film because I was that obnoxious person. I'm still kind of like that now with you. Like, right, you need to watch this film. Right, we're watching this film. Drop everything. We're watching this now. But yeah, so it was, it was subtitles as well. A lot of it's in a different language, and the anime sequence, the fact that it's non-linear storytelling, the editing style, the music choices, everything. I was just being broadsided by all of this new stuff. And I knew from a very young age I was watching a film that it was so unique. I hadn't seen anything like this before. And I think this probably was like a gateway film to just cinema and other directors. I think from here I found like Christopher Nolan stuff, also non-linear storytelling stuff like Memento or The Prestige or stuff, which would have been like mid 2000, would be like 2006 or something like that.
It was my introduction to how violent things can be as well, because like obviously when I was a kid, I mean, I've been a huge Dragon Ball fan since I was a kid, and there is a lot of similarities with like the kung fu fighting and all that kind of stuff. But Dragon Ball is, maybe I'll say it. I mean, if you go to the manga, there's a lot of topless women and stuff in it, and there's a lot of sexual stuff. But so it's not kiddie, but you know what I mean. Like when it's aimed at a younger audience, obviously, do you know what I mean? And it is still like a kids thing in a lot of ways. But this is my first introduction to, there's a lot of blood that can be used in this. And like, because when you have that whole spraying of blood sort of thing, that was the first time I'd seen that. And I was like, oh, that's cool. It was the first. I mean, again, I'm a big Final Fantasy fan. And when people have like, you have that sort of anime thing and people have got their own sword and that sword means something to them. It's like a special sword and all that. It was my first introduction to that. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. She has a unique sword. And I've always wanted, and I still do, but I've always wanted that sort of like, I have a couple of like, katanas and stuff, but I've always wanted that just a nice, like I still do, it'd be great. But like, do you know what I mean? Something just made by like an old wise man to be like, this, I made it. That would be like the coolest thing ever. It was my introduction to that whole thing. So yeah, same. It was just very, like now, even like, like in Final Fantasy and things like that. And, when people get, stabbed in games or movies or whatever, being like, yeah, but like, because we spoke about Pocahontas and how like there's no entry wound when people get shot, and I always like, yeah, but it needs to be it doesn't have to be over the top, but I like the fact of this is a weird thing to say, realism, because a lot of it is very
hyper real, but
I like that when it's like, you can see the blood, you can see the violence. If there's violence, I want to emphasize because there's violence for a reason, and I just love that.
We got Kobe Wiggle in the comments. How you doing, man? Hopefully you're keeping yourself well. We're probably going to be going for over an hour on this, undoubtedly, because there's so much that we can talk about with Kill Bill, and there's a lot of film to talk about with this, especially with the whole bloody affair. Even from a young age, like the crazy amounts of violence in there, and decapitations and the fountains of blood. Even at a young age, I knew that it was like really over the top and stylized and kind of cartoony.
For ages, I thought that was the norm. I thought, if you behead someone, there, it's going to spray up, and logically it made sense to me, because I was like, well, technically the blood rushes your head. I was like, that makes sense. That's actually going to happen. And I didn't put two and two together when I was at school, and when they would behead people in, like, you know, medieval times, and they talked about that, how it didn't spray everywhere. I thought, nah, this is what's real. They just didn't show us that in school, and but yeah, it's I thought it was real.
And I loved so much about that first one. I haven't talked much about the second one. I've got stories about the second one, and then we'll talk about how it goes over as, you know, the whole bloody affair. But you mentioned that scene where she goes to Hattori Hanzo and she goes into the attic and he's got all the swords laid out. You've got that great song that, you know, like that kind of like ethereal, I don't know if it's in Japanese or a made up language or whatever, just sounds. And it's just, that scene is so perfect because it's almost like the film just has a breather and it just lets you absorb that atmosphere, and you're looking at these swords, the way it's shot. Everything about that scene I absolutely adore, and I love the character of Hattori Hanzo. He and Pai Mei are probably my favorite two characters in the film. But as a kid, and I am still like this now, I mean, look at my walls, I was always obsessed with like film swords and like cool weapons and things like that. Watching the Lord of the Rings, even Star Wars, I know, like the lightsabers, like the lightsaber hilts. I was fascinated by it. I was like, oh, that's so cool. Or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon with the Green Destiny sword. And yeah, just that scene. I just wanted that room in my house. I wanted that rack of, you know, samurai swords and whatnot. It was just amazing. And then I remember being so hyped for Kill Bill 2 when that cliffhanger like comes in at the end of Kill Bill 1, which I'm assuming people watching this have seen Kill Bill. If you haven't, what are you doing? Go and watch Kill Bill. But there's a cliffhanger at the end of Kill Bill 1, and I just remember my jaw hitting the floor as directed and written by Quentin Tarantino came up on the screen and the credits. And I was like, I was out of my mind. I had to see Kill Bill 2 now. And I remember seeing trailers for it, knowing that I wouldn't get into the cinema because I wasn't old enough. And I actually watched it on a pirate copy. Someone it was probably when I was in year 6 at school. I'm not sure what that is in terms of like the US equivalent of schools. But one of my classmates claimed to have a pirate copy. And this is the olden days of pirate copies. This is where it's like filmed on a shitty camcorder and you've got the silhouettes of people standing up and walking past. We all had them, right?
Those are good times. Someone would stand in the way to go to the toilet and you'd be like, this is a good bit move.
Yeah. It's like, it's usually your dad like, oh, I know a guy who can do pirate copies, and you come home with like...
There was a bit where I used to live in London, there was like a load of Asian people that used to stand outside these shops and like have them all on a mat and you'd pick them. And then when the police would show up, they'd all like roll them up.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
We all did it. We all watched them. And I was like, this is going to be my one chance to watch Kill Bill 2. And I got it, and I think I got that and Spider-Man 2 at the time. Why I didn't go and see Spider-Man 2 at the cinema is beyond me, because it's incredible. But I remember just getting home from school, having Kill Bill 2. I'm like, I can finally know what happens. I don't even know if it had been released in this country at that time. Maybe it had. And yeah, some of it, I couldn't really see all of it because it was really shitty quality. But immediately I knew this is a very, very different film. And it is, and you see people online talking about this film. We all know at this point, the first one is like the high octane, crazy, over the top action, the one that's got more of an Eastern focus. And then the second one is more of sort of like your spaghetti Western, slow burn, dialogue heavy, you know, the stuff that Tarantino does best. And because they were released like that, because that's how I viewed them and continue to view them until this probably comes out, I have always made that distinction. And I think because of that, I have always viewed them as two separate films, which takes us on to the whole bloody affair. So we knew that this existed, this was out there. And I have seen something that was like an attempt, I guess, at an edit that someone had made to try and get the whole bloody affair out there. We have the official release now. But I think someone had taken like the Japanese release that had the Crazy 88 fight in color and some of the additional scenes like the Sophie Fatale getting her second arm cut off, things like that.
But there were things in it that we got, like even just little shots rather than just like the anime sequence stuff. There were little shots that I was thinking, I swear this is new. I swear I recognize this. I don't recognize this dialogue, sorry. Little bits like that. I was like, I swear this is new, moved over here. So there were even little bits like that, which obviously we never got, which I think a lot of that was great.
Yeah, no, totally. And we were sort of like murmuring a little bit, weren't we? Like, oh, I think that's new. That's an extended. Some of it was just literally a couple of seconds, like a single shot. like additional
It's
coverage.
like when they released Star Wars, there's like, you know, 30 seconds of extra footage and everyone goes out and buys it. It was like that, but it was cool.
We knew there was there was going to be an extended anime sequence, and that was the thing that was kept under wraps. We got a trailer for the whole bloody affair where they showed probably like 1 or 2 shots from it very, very quick. And even today, me and you were sort of messaging thinking, I wonder what the additional couple of minutes are going to be. And I was actually surprised at how substantial the additional anime stuff was, because it is like an entire brand new sequence. I think we did see out there that it was like 2 minutes of additional footage. It's longer than 2 minutes. It was definitely longer than 2 minutes. It's like a whole action beat that happens.
It was a proper, it was like a proper little movie in itself.
Yeah. So I guess we'll talk broadly about the experiences with the whole bloody affair, and then we'll go more in detail about some of the additional stuff and stuff that we liked, or maybe we didn't like as much. How did you feel about seeing Kill Bill as one complete movie?
I think it was better as one. I think it worked better as one movie. I was, it's that whole, because the thing is, you watch part 1, it has this big climax, and part 2 kind of goes slower. So obviously there is that. So will it work? Will it not work? How will it? I mean, I've watched both together, that sort of thing. But how well is this going to go? And I think it works very, 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 very well. I think it works better like that. I think the reveal at the end is better. I mean, I can't fully put myself in that because I already know that. Do you know what I mean? But I think it does work really well, and I think the fact that it goes dialogue heavy more towards the end, I think the reason that works as well is because it shows how action packed it can be. But every kill is different. Every single assassin that dies is different. It's all done in different ways. It doesn't feel like it repeats anything. I think what I really liked is part 1 felt kind of like, well, this is your intro of how she finds the rest of the members. So it did feel nice. It's like, right, she had to go through this big thing, and now she's found the rest of the members. She does that, and then it's kind of like what was it? Because it said in Lord of the Rings as well, when they have that when it's the mouth of Sauron. And in the book, it's mentioned basically. I can't remember if they say this specifically in the film, but it's mentioned how like some battles aren't fought with like swords and stuff. Sometimes they're fought with words. Essentially, is what it kind of says, and that's how the end is sort of done. Yes, they do battle and do whatever, but I think it's a really, really good lead up to it. I think it worked better than I thought it would.
You definitely do get the sense of this being Tarantino's magnum opus, which I definitely think it is. I'm not sure if it's my favorite Tarantino film. I'd have to sort of really think about that. I do have a real affinity for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, actually. I'm going to plan on watching that again over the December break, and then I'm going to try and get in my head as to what my favorite Tarantino film is. But I think Kill Bill undoubtedly is the one that I have the most sort of emotional attachment to, nostalgia for, and sort of like the most involved history with, I guess, just in terms of how many times I've watched it. Way more than any other Tarantino film that is made. And when you see it all complete as, this 4+ hour epic that it is, you do get the sense of, Tarantino really outdid himself with this one. Complete passion project, totally unlike any other film that he did before this point. But I will say, every film that he made after this feels like it's trying to do what Kill Bill does in terms of the style, the music choices, the editing, the sort of like cartoony whoosh sound effects and everything that's added in there. I feel like every movie that he made after this was trying to be a little bit stylistically like Kill Bill. Whereas you watch all of the films before, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, they are fundamentally very different, I would say. And now it's almost like you know what to expect from a Tarantino film. At least that's my opinion. That's not to say they're bad. He's made some incredible films after Kill Bill, but they do feel like they're aping off this one a little bit. No, I'm really glad I watched it. And as you mentioned, there is a twist at the end, which I almost don't want to say what it is in case anyone hasn't seen it. But I am so jealous of if anyone's going to check this out at the cinema that hasn't seen Kill Bill before.
Yeah, I think it works better towards the end rather than at the end of part 1.
I like both, and you actually made a great point about this earlier today when we were messaging. You said that you still like that cliffhanger ending
Yeah.
of one, because you still do get a dramatic reveal.
I think it works if you watch them as two movies. It works very, very well because you still get that. And also there's a dramatic reveal at the end and the character finds out. So it's nice when you're like, oh, now she's... So I think it
makes
works.
you want to come back and watch that second part, doesn't it? It does its job.
I think it works very well like that. I don't think there's a wrong way to watch it, in the sense of if you were to watch part 1 and 2, I wouldn't say, you need to watch it as one. It's so much better. I prefer it. Like, I think it's very, very good, but that's also having watched both. What I would say to someone, if they'd never watched it, it would be like, okay, you can either watch it as 2 or you can watch it as 1. But once you've watched one part one way, you can't
undo it.
You can't unwatch it. Like, there are things you'll see, and they both work very, very well. It just depends. If you can sit through a 4.5 hour movie, it's 100% worth it. I would recommend that. But if you're thinking, probably can't, because some people can't and some people don't want to. It's like, watch them as 2 parts, and it's still very good. But I still think this is my favorite way.
I feel like it's like Empire Strikes Back, where we've watched it a certain way and pop culture and whatnot.
And everyone knows.
Whereas, I mean, if anyone does get to watch Empire Strikes Back and the original trilogy without knowing anything about anything, then, that's always a wonderful thing. But we haven't really had that luxury with Kill Bill, knowing the twist at the end and knowing where it's going. But I think trying to distance myself from that and watch it, I love when characters in films find out something as we, the audience, do as well. And I think it does work as a great reveal at the end of the film, when we discover the twist at the same time as the bride. I think it could be, it still is emotionally impactful, and it still does, hit you, but we've had over 2 decades of that knowledge beforehand.
I don't think anyone would have gone to see it and not known, though, because it's kind of one of those things, especially being as long as it is. It's kind of like you'd have to be a fan already.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, I could tell it was actually quite a lot of people there. I won't say it was sold out, but there was definitely more people there. That being said, though,
I do think the guy next to us, I think he had brought his girlfriend to it for the first time, though, because she said, "Oh, this is what's like." She was like, "Oh, it's just a lot of blood," and I was like, "I feel like he brought it to it when you need to come with me." I feel like she got it for the first time, but I don't think she appreciated it.
I feel like I didn't hear many people sort of like murmur. There wasn't many reactions, actually. I could hear one guy like, a little bit, not loads. Towards when that song About Her comes on. No, sorry, it's at the 5-point palm heart exploding thing towards the end with Bill. I did hear a woman at the back say like, "Oh, it's really sad." I swear I heard that. That's the only thing that I heard. That was like one of the only reactions from the audience.
I could have done about the intermission though.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about that.
That was a bit weird. I get why they did it. I get why they did, because it's quite long, and I did go for a piss, so it was needed in a way. But I could have done without it, because it did kind of take away from that being one long thing. It was a bit odd. Yeah,
I did hear beforehand that there was an intermission. I watched a couple of reviews for this to see what people thought, and they mentioned an intermission. And when it was gearing up towards it and the screen went blank, I thought, here it comes. What I did like about the intermission is that we did get that amazing song, which to me is sort of like one of the main themes of Kill Bill, which is the Lonely Shepherd, which is like the panpipe song, which plays out over the end of Kill Bill 1, which you do get. It does play that song over the first part of the intermission, which I really appreciated.
I still think though, where it comes in, I know it kind of ruins the illusion a little bit. I say illusion, but it ruins that whole one sequence thing. But I still think, even without the twist happening there and it becoming a second movie, I still think if you're going to pause the movie to go and get a drink or whatever, that's still where, because it's like, right, this is where the journey probably begins, because she's done her beginning, she's found where they are, this is where it now goes on. And that's why they have that flashback, just to be like, okay, so this is what happened, this is why I'm having revenge on these people. But the beginning was just finding those people. Do you know what I mean? So I still think it's the perfect point. Just I could have done without it.
I do agree with you, though, is that the one reason that I wanted to see this was to see what it was like. Well, to see the new stuff. I wanted to see that new anime sequence and all the things that were rumored about for all these years, just to see it on the big screen again. I have seen Kill Bill before. They did a Tarantino season, so I have seen Volume 1 and 2 before on the big screen. I know this was a first time experience on the big screen for yourself. But the intermission did kind of shatter that illusion of wanting to experience this as one flowing narrative. In a way, my brain almost sort of went back to what I knew before of a Volume 1 and a Volume 2. It felt like two separate films.
I get why they did it, but at the same time, I don't know why they did it, because they have had showings of movies about the same length or whatever. So it did feel a bit unnecessary. You know, it should have been one of those, like I say, I get why they did it, but it should have been one of, there isn't an intermission. You know what you're going in for. It's 4.5 hours, deal with it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I didn't need a piss. I just went for a piss because I can take it now. But like, do you know what I mean? It was that kind of, but if it wasn't there, it would have made it so much better, I think.
Let's talk about the new anime sequence then, because I think out of new content in the film, aside from some scenes getting removed and the new structure and everything like that, this is probably the most substantial change or addition to the film that we haven't seen before. Because deleted scenes exist out there. I will say that, like that deleted scene I was at from Kill Bill 2 with Bill and the Bride, where the people attack Bill in the street.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm thinking, you're doing the whole bloody affair. That scene's like,
where does
2 minutes?
Where
chuck
does
it in. I don't care. Just chuck it in. May as well. Just cover everything. Just get all the footage in.
Yeah, but I didn't enjoy that scene that much. I thought it was a little bit.
Yeah, it was a little bit crummy. I can understand why it was deleted. But at this point, I'm like, just put it in the movie. You've got everything else in there.
Like the thing where the case comes off the sword and he puts it to him and something. It was a bit.
Yeah.
But I think it probably would have been sharpened up if it had made it.
But the anime sequence. So I think we guessed correctly where we thought that additional thing was going to be, which it was.
We got it right.
So let's just do like a bit of context about what we get in the actual film and the new stuff. So we have the moment where O-Ren's parents are killed, and we have Boss Matsumoto, who's, you know, the head honcho, who's sitting there in the chair. And then the guy who's sort of, the perpetrator of all of the killings of the parents and whatnot is just this guy in this thin guy in this grey suit with a samurai sword.
Who doesn't have a nose piercing, but then does in the new one.
Yeah, it's very strange. And then in the original film, we see O-Ren a little bit older, I think at the age of 11, where she finally gets her revenge on Boss Matsumoto. And then it flashes to the point where she's 18 and she's like the deadliest assassin in the world at this point. We get an additional, 5 minutes or so, I would say, possibly longer, situated in between where she's 13 years old, where she goes after that other guy that isn't Boss Matsumoto, who's called Pretty Ricky, yeah. And when it started off, and I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool that she's going after him, because what about that other guy?
Do you know what was in my mind as well before that came on? I was like, do you know what? We don't actually find out what happens with him. And then I was like, there you go.
Yeah,
it worked. It was good.
And this sequence is ridiculously over the top. The other stuff was like this dark, violent anime. And this is still violent, but this almost became like a superhero thing, like the crazy shit they were doing in this, defying
Brighter
physics, and
well.
It did feel, it was like almost like a different animation style.
Yeah.
Pretty Ricky's getting into an elevator shaft with like a couple of other bodyguards, and O-Ren is in the ceiling of the elevator. She shoots all the other guards. And then she like throws grenades in, and he grabs her, and it explodes, but it doesn't blow them up in the elevator for some reason. It blows the bottom of the elevator out, and the elevators fall in, and they're like dangling on the cables and stuff, and they're free falling down elevator shafts. It did go on a little bit, I thought, and I was watching it the whole time. Part of me was like, well, this is cool. I'm seeing new Kill Bill stuff. This is new additional lore, which I've never seen before. So it was great to experience it. But then on the flip side, I was like, I can understand why they removed this scene. Yeah,
because we've already had the beats of it being she killed the person, she took her revenge, then she became an assassin. Like, it's not needed. But it was like, I did think, what happened to this guy? Because he was technically the one that killed her dad. But it can just be a kind of like, okay, but he's the one that killed her dad, but she obviously went through people to get to the main guy. Mm-hmm. And that's how it was explained in my head. Like, he was just one of them because that guy killed her mom. If he had just watched while this dude killed them, then yes, it would have been a bit, but he killed her dad and then Boss Matsumoto killed her mom. So it was kind of like she obviously just went through him to get there. So it didn't need to happen, but it was cool to see. It was cool. I mean, I wouldn't, if I was to watch Hobbit, I wouldn't be like, this shouldn't happen. I did like it, but yeah, I can see why they removed it. It's not needed. It's not something where I think, that adds to the story. I'm like, no, it's just a fun little additional thing because it's been 20 years and it's a great movie.
And that's sort of my thoughts on this film. I'm glad I've experienced it. As I said, I never thought I'd get to see this cut ever in my lifetime, but I'm glad that I have, especially on the big screen. It's a nice little early Christmas present from Quentin Tarantino. We need to talk about that as well, because this was just so random that this was dropped. This wasn't in aid of like the 20th anniversary. I was trying to think, is it in line with the 20th anniversary? I was like, well, Kill Bill 1 and 2 were released in 2003 and 2004, I believe.
Oh, but talking of, I was just going to say, like, favorite shot of that new anime sequence, especially, when he slides down on his hands, and you don't really think you're just sliding down the thing, and obviously the friction, that's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And then you see the blood stuck. I was like, that would hurt, actually.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
The cable as well. Yeah, they're fucking sharp as well.
Yeah.
It did go on, though. I mean, there was the grenades which blew up, which didn't take anyone out, which took ages to go off as well. Like, when you pull a pin in a grenade, I don't know how long you get. Was it 5 seconds in Monty Python?
And then he says he's going to rape a child, and there's loads of stuff.
And then, yeah, they fall down the shaft. He falls down the shaft, and you think, oh, he's dead. But then he's actually hanging on, and then she jumps down and then stabs him. And I was like, oh my God, this is going on. But it was cool to see. But I think overall, with the whole bloody affair, the additions are sort of negligible to me, really. Like, the anime sequence, as I said, was cool to see, but I can understand why it was cut, and it probably flows better in the theatrical version, just showing her kill Matsumoto and then flashing forward to when she's an assassin. And then there was a couple of additional other shots, but they're maybe like a couple of seconds here and there. There's a few extra like kill shots and action beats in the what's it called? The House of the
House of Blue Leaves.
Blue Leaves, that's it. Sorry, yeah.
Which is weird because I've heard of the House of Blue Leaves before I ever heard of the House of Blues in the US, and I thought they were the same thing for ages.
There's still a shot in this which really bothers me, and I don't know if you really notice this as much when it's in black and white. Maybe you do because the blood would look black, but there's one guy she kills on the walkway, and the water thing goes off, which would be the blood, but it's not colored red, and it's just water. And it's always bothered me that that's still in there.
I do think that, but I prefer it in black and white. I think it adds an effect. I think it looks really cool. I think it makes it like an old styled like movie, that black and white kind. I think it works better black and white personally. But I feel like in the black and white version where she rips out the guy's throat isn't in that, because she pulls out his throat in this one. But that's not one of the shots in the black and white version. No,
it's not. Yeah.
But I always found that weird. I get the eye thing because I know it's not possible, really. But do you know what I mean? I know, but on a technicality, an eye is like, it doesn't have skin to go through. A throat does. I find that I've seen that scene before because I've seen it in color before, but I always found that very odd. I'm like, but that is a really weirdly far-fetched thing. Like, it's not like...
Well, she can punch... She learns from Pai Mei to punch through things, so I assumed that...
Yeah, but she just goes like that. And I was like, bit weird. I mean, snatching the eye, like I said, it doesn't have to go through skin, but that has to tear... I don't know, I just always found that a little bit weird.
I do personally prefer the pace of the theatrical version. That moment where she, like, hits his throat and then it cuts to Sophie and she goes like, and does, like, a repulsed reaction. That guy who she spares at the end as well, where she like spanks him with a sword and sends him on his way. He gets set up earlier in the fight. He runs into her. I don't,
because she looked fed up with him at the end. So I like that. I do like.
I remember as a kid watching it for the first time and it snapped to black and white, and I honestly thought something was wrong with my TV at the time. I think I was like, why is it all of a sudden gone into black and white? And I don't know why. Maybe as a kid you just think like, oh, black and white movies are all very old hat and old fashioned. But I kept thinking like, oh, I want to see this in color. Why does it have to be in black and white? And I kind of turned my nose up at it. But then over the years, I sort of became enamored with it. And as you get older, you think, oh, well, it's sort of like old kung fu movies, I suppose, that are in black and white. And there's a stylistic thing to it. I like the moment where when she's cornered, it does a close-up of her eyes and she blinks as you get like this sort of clicking sound effect as it snaps back to color. Then you talk about the bit where they shut the lights off and you get that like weird sci-fi computer
music
sort of technical sound
strange.
Effects.
Yeah.
But all of this I came to love over the years, and now I have seen this fight scene in color. As I said, someone's got like the Japanese version before and edited something in the same style as the whole bloody affair. So I have seen this before, but
one thing I would do though, if I was to do, I would make that fight scene in black and white though. I prefer it in that.
And I don't know if I've sort of Stockholm syndromed myself into liking the black and white sequence a little bit more. Maybe it's just because I've reached a level of acceptance now over 2 decades of watching this film. I do like both. I do like both, and I can understand maybe keeping it in color because it was the only reason it was made in black and white was so that it didn't get an X rating, was so that it could
That's why
still
the
be.
anime sequence is made in anime as well.
Yeah,
Because otherwise it would have been too
yeah,
ridiculous.
Jesus.
Like, yeah, so they were like, all right, we need it. But I think again that was a really good style because it was because obviously the first half is obviously that Japanesey kind of anime sort of thing, and I think that works very, very well. So that was again a really good thing that came out of it, like the black and white thing. It was, yeah. So those choices might have been forced in a way, but I think there were very good things that came out of it.
And then you get to part 2, and apart from the twist reveal, I feel like there was a couple of extra establishing shots when she goes to Esteban.
Wasn't I can't remember, but you know when Bud's in, like when he walks out and he goes, "Oh, Rocket's got a job for you."
Yeah.
I feel like in the theatrical you don't see him walk through the kitchen. I feel like there's that little extra shot when he walks through the kitchen.
I think that's still the same.
I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that. I was like, I feel like this is new. I can't remember, but it's literally just him walking through a kitchen. That's literally the only bit. But yeah, there's a few little things.
I feel like when she goes to Esteban, there's some like close-ups of some of the women from the brothel that are just kind of looking at her, and I don't remember
when
that
they're playing cards as well and stuff. Yeah,
I don't remember that being in the theatrical version. There's like a moment where the bride looks at her like, "I feel really bad for you that you're in this lifestyle type thing," which I don't remember being in there. Maybe it is, but it, you know, when you just your brain just goes,
staring at,
this doesn't feel familiar. This feels like it's an addition. So all the stuff in part 2 is really negligible. Pretty much most of the new stuff comes from part 1. When you were watching it as a complete thing, did you still get that sense of this is the Japanese over the top half and this is the Western half, or because you have the Pai Mei sequence, did it feel
no,
like...
I didn't. I think it works as one, and I didn't really get that. I felt like it was just a nice intro to how she got, because she had to break that barrier to find out where the rest were. I think it worked really well. I didn't get it didn't feel like these are two different entities. It didn't feel like that at all. I think it worked very, very, very well. And Pai Mei obviously really helps with that being in the second part and being as he did. And I think the pacing works really well in terms of that. I think the second half doesn't feel as slow being in one whole thing. I think being in just in itself, where it starts with the chapel scene, whatever. I think if you just watch part 2 on its own, it feels like, if you were going to compare the movies, the slower one. But I think if you watch it in one, it doesn't feel like it slows down. I think the pacing goes really well.
That was my biggest concern actually going in, because I mentioned to you that I was kind of intimidated. I've done long films before. I've watched long films before. I went to a Lord of the Rings extended marathon, which I'm never going to do ever again. That was ridiculous. But I was kind of intimidated by this one, and because knowing how energetic part 1 is, and always having that divide, I was thinking, you know, that you're going to ramp up to this huge high, and then the pacing is just going to drop off a cliff. But it really didn't for me. I never sort of wanted to check the time at any point. I was engrossed in everything. The intermission probably did help, so it, you know, you could find that second wind, maybe, I suppose. But I could have gone without it. But it's probably that knowledge of knowing how much longer you've got left of the movie. I suppose if you could trim some things out of there, I've always thought like the Esteban stuff you could probably lose, and maybe the moment she finds out she's pregnant, and some of like the Bill dialogue does get a little bit self.
She finds out she's pregnant. I've always liked that scene. I think I've always liked it because it shows her when she was an assassin kind of thing. It's that, that's why I always liked it. It's quite that whole. I think I think if I was to, and this just comes on to seeing her as an assassin still, is if I was to choose what I would have had in that extended anime sequence, it would have been a bit of when O-Ren started and how that her and O-Ren were friends. Because I swear I read that somewhere that they were quite close. I don't know how close, I can't remember, but they were good friends when they were assassins together. And they, you know, I think if it had touched on something like that, it would have shown a bit of a relationship between them. And I think that would have been cool. That would have been my choice. But yeah, I feel like I read that somewhere, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm making it up in my head.
Yeah, the only bit that we sort of realize is the bit where it's the massacre at the church, isn't it? And you see the bit where O-Ren kicks the bride in the face, and like the anime sequence, where she's like, she should have killed 10, and it freeze frames on it. Something like in that style, seeing more of them together. I will say that I do appreciate this about Kill Bill, and I think you maybe sort of notice it more when you are watching it as one complete film, is sort of this history, this lore that you get hints of. It doesn't get like masses of explanation, but there's some cryptic stuff in there, like Bud and Bill and their history and their relationship and what happened after that day at the church. How after 4 years, the very different paths that all 5 members of the Deadly Viper assassination gang. I keep wanting to say Fox Force 5, but that's Pulp Fiction.
Do you know what I find? Well, actually, no, it's not that odd because Bill wasn't in love with Vanita Green, but Vanita Green was okay to go off and have a normal life. Yeah, Beatrix wasn't. I could say I know it's because like, obviously he was in love with her. It's a bit different, but you think, but it's kind of like a mafia thing. Once you're in that lifestyle, you can't really just go away. But Vanita Green did, and
well, ultimately it came back to bite her, didn't it? That's the thing.
Did,
like,
but
it's
not from Bill or anything like that. It just because, like, if she didn't do that, then it would have been fine. Maybe not in 20 years, but it would have been fine. You know, she was kind of allowed to do that, which I don't really understand fully how she was able to just go, let's go blue collar.
Well, not all of them, but everything all sort of comes to a head, doesn't it, after that day at the church? And you can sort of hypothesize what happened. O-Ren sort of bombed off and set herself up as the head of, you know, the criminal ring in Japan, basically, living the high life. Vanita Green gets out of the lifestyle, tries to set up her own life, but ultimately is killed, and her daughter's life is fucked up now as well, for a potential possible Kill Bill 3, which I hope never happens.
I know that was an idea. I think, though, if we're talking Kill Bill 3 and that setup, that was enough of a setup. We didn't need Elle to be unknown if she survives. We didn't need any of that. I think it was enough of a setup to have Nikki's that possibly sort of, you know, if there's going to be any other story, it would be her getting her revenge, because she even says, you know, I'd understand that if you wanted it. That's all we need. We didn't need anything else, you know. And Sophie, we don't find out what happens to her. So the idea for a sequel is going to be Elle and Sophie train her. We didn't need her, because Sophie was basically like the unofficial 6th member, kind of. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like that's all we needed. We just need a little bit of speculation of if they were to, that could happen, because like you said, there's a lot of lore behind it. There can be things of it could go somewhere. We're not going to, but there could be a thing here. It's like having those little unknowns, and I think that was enough. But you know, we'll talk about Elle in a bit. But yeah.
And then there's the relationship between this. Bud's the one who's the most fascinating to me, because he's just dropped everything.
Why? Because the thing is, why did he go from? I'd understand, like I say, she dropped everything and went to a blue collar lifestyle, but clearly she was. I mean, obviously she was minted. Her husband was a doctor, but you know, she obviously still would have kept some money or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? But Bud was just, I'm gonna live in a trailer. Why? Why, out of all things, did you do that?
I get the impression that he was really deeply affected by what they did at the church, because Bill mentions the last time they spoke wasn't pleasant, and the fact that Bud has just sort of dropped everything. It's almost like he's in a state of self-loathing. He's almost like, I'm not worthy of anything nice. I'm going to live in like this shitty trailer off the grid, work a shitty job, you know, just take it when like the boss treats me like shit, and doing all of this horrible stuff, like self-flagellation, almost repenting for his crimes. The bit that always fascinated me was at the end of Kill Bill Volume 1, when you're watching them as 2 separate things, and you get the flash forwards to these additional members of the crew, like where she's writing out Bud, and it flashes forward to where he says, that woman deserves her revenge and we deserve to die. That's all we get. And I had that for like a year, thinking, oh, we actually seems quite sympathetic to her cause in a way. But then when you get to Kill Bill 2, he's a complex guy, because he almost has this sympathetic side to him, but then he's like, well, actually, no, she also deserves to fucking die, and I'm going to bury her alive. He's actually probably one of the most like psychopathic ones out of all of them for what he was going to put her through.
He's the one that actually gets to do it as well, basically. He's the one that succeeds the most. But yeah, I don't know why he went off the grid as much as he did. Like, I understand maybe going off the grid to a bit, but if he ran the bar that he was working at and sort of put his money into that, done something, maybe he might have been living in a trailer, but he ran that, shows sort of like he's still a head honcho somewhere or something. He's still got some form of power, but he's just kind of living off the grid. Because living in a trailer could just be, yeah, he's got money, but he just lives off the grid. He doesn't pay rent anywhere. He bought a trailer, he lives in the desert. That could be his thing, and that's fine. But we got, you know, his vibe was not that. his vibe was pretty much he's homeless. He's a drunk homeless man that lives in it. It was a bit. I don't know why you would go from one to the other. It just seemed a little bit strange. I think, to be fair, one thing I would cut is him working at the bar and mentioning anything to do with that. Don't know what I'd replace it with, because maybe we would need a little bit of Bud doing something. It could even just be we replace it with something as simple as maybe he goes fishing or something. But that's
what in fucking buttfuck nowhere desert Arizona. Where's the water?
Yeah, that's true.
It's not Arizona, is it? Where I can't remember whereabouts it is.
But you know what I mean. Like if he did something like that, the reason that could be replaced with that is because it doesn't show that he's basically just being treated like shit from his boss and he means nothing. It just shows he's living off the grid. I think if we got something like that, it could have been fine. We didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it was a bit weird. I think if we got something like that, it just shows he's off the grid, but he doesn't give a shit. That was a bit like, I don't know why he's put himself through something where he's demeaning, where he clearly was earning millions before. And also, Elle makes a point, because he's obviously not got millions, because when she says she'll give him $1 million, she calls him a millionaire, like it's some new revelation. I'm like, but wasn't he this before?
It feels like he just sold all of his stuff, just got rid of it, like he didn't care. Like he even lies to his brother about selling the sword and whatnot, and it only made like $250.
That shows, I think, the whole that he probably tried to let go of the lifestyle, but he couldn't. There's some things he was like, but.
Well, he did love his brother. Like the fact that he kept the sword and that message is engraved on the sword. When he's about to bury the bride as well, he says, this is for breaking my brother's heart. That's sort of like his last words to the bride in that moment. So. It's
a whole mafia thing, though, isn't it? It's like the mafia, like, for instance, they kill people off, but they show up at their funeral sort of thing. It's that whole...
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't quite put my finger on why he would do that. Why he would just disappear, like... subject himself to the kind of thing that he did.
And then Elle's like the jealous number two, isn't she's like the backup girlfriend. She's the side chick.
Do you know what? Elle annoys me because we had such a good set of Elle where she could have been a great character, and she was cool. I didn't dislike her, but we did have a battle sequence with her. It was more of a fighting kind of. There was no sword play, which is fine because we already got that. We didn't need another, to play it exactly the same. But it's sort of, we got that, she pours her eye out and then she leaves. That was so out of character. I feel like she would have made it final. Do you know what I mean? She wouldn't have just been like, oh yeah, I'll just leave you. And it would be like, no, she wants to make a point. Now, the thing that I can, the thing that my brain kind of thinks, because she talks about her suffering and obviously they don't like each other. So it's that whole like, do you know what, you're going to suffer in there. You got no eyes. We're just going to let you suffer until you die. I could understand that, but still, she wants to make it final. I think the best thing, because this would have worked in this scene as well, because Bud is definitely someone who would have a tank of gasoline somewhere. She could blow up the thing with them in it, and one that would have mean she was able to get rid of Bud in a way, and it also means she would have made Elle suffer, and she could have said something to her right once she's just flapping about and she douses some gasoline on it, saying that she was going to make her suffer, and it still would have been final. But I felt that was weird that we kept her unknown. It just didn't. It felt out of character. I don't mind the whole leaving a character unknown, but the bride wouldn't do that. That's what bugs me.
I think the thing that creates that doubt in your mind, and this was an intentional thing by Tarantino, is when you get to one of the many credits at the end of this film, because there's about 4 separate credit sequences for this. I think it's the second one or one of them, when all the names of the actors of the Deadly Viper assassination gang, it's like Lucy Liu as O-Ren, it crosses them out, Vanita Green, Bud, and it gets to Ellie and a big old question mark, like the fucking Riddler shows up over it. And it's like, oh, you're keeping that open. Now, if that wasn't in there, you could infer that, well, she's left her to a fate worse than death. She's completely blind in a fucking trailer in buttfuck nowhere desert El Paso. Granted, she's got a car outside, but where's she going to drive it to? She can't see where she's fucking driving. There's a snake in the camper as well. She's as good as dead. Like, someone might come to do a wellness check on Bud. Like, if he doesn't show up to work. Well, granted, he's not meant to show up for 2 weeks.
Exactly.
So at least for 2 weeks, no one's going to do a wellness check.
She ain't going to survive in the desert for that long.
No, exactly.
Like,
so then
it's very likely that she'd die. But the fact, we were given such a hole, but she might not be, and it just felt so out of character. I get leaving things open. I do. I think the whole Nikki thing, I think that was cool. I think, the whole law, like you were talking about, where we're not taught. I think great things like that. I think I think one of the things I really picked up on today, seeing it, was how there is so much that's sort of like, I wouldn't say unnecessary, but you just think that didn't need to be as long as that. That didn't need to be as long. This could have been short. And I like that because I was like, it would just relays to the whole, like, because I always say so many times how not everything needs to happen. Not everything needs a reason. Not everything needs this. And there was so much I was like, you know what, that didn't need to be that long. I'm like, but it was cool. I liked watching that. Or, you know, like you say, like there was lore that's like, but we should know. And I'm like, no, we don't need to know. That's cool. I like that. It just shows us a background. We don't know everything, and that's fine. Things can be left open. I just think there were cases like that where it was just left too open. That was like, yeah, but that was out of character now.
I always think it would have been better where, as she leaves the camper, and it does that close up of the black mamba snake as the bride walks past. As she walks out and the bride's kind of shambling away, is you just hear the snake biting Ellie and her going frantic in the room as the door slams, and then we cut to the next chapter.
Blown up. I think she should have blown up, and then you get that
and
shot
then
of
walk
her
away,
walking away. And
I
think that's what we need. That, like we all did on GTA, where we walk away from the fucking the petrol pumps and they just That's what we needed, a shot like that, and that would have worked. That would have been cool.
Speaking of additional lore, which I agree with you, sometimes it can just embellish the world a little bit. Sometimes additional lore is not what we need and is a bit self-indulgent and a bit sort of head-scratching. And that takes us to the post-credit scene of this film. We got treated to a lovely little addition called Chapter 5.5. What was it? Yuki's Revenge? Or something like that. Now, it started up and everything was done in this like weird video game graphics. And I thought, what the fuck is this? There was no lead into it. It was dubbed as Kill Bill The Lost Chapter or something like that. And as I say, like Chapter 5.5. And it's almost like this, you didn't notice her in the background, but there was this extra character there the whole time in the background, sort of following the bride's footsteps. You have Quentin Tarantino, who's voicing Bill, who instructs this Japanese assassin called Yuki, who's actually the sister of Gogo, to try and hunt down the bride. And it shows that Yuki was actually there at the whole Vanita Green thing. She was in the ice cream van outside, apparently. I hate this retcon bullshit. I really, really hate it. Although the Saw films do that all the time, so I guess it can be done in a good way. This was weird, man. This was a fucking weird sequence. And it essentially is just what it was intended to be in Kill Bill originally. When he first did his when he did the first draft of his script, there was this whole elaborate thing where Gogo was going to have a twin sister, and right after the ending of Kill Bill 1, she was going to try and go after the bride. And I'm so glad that didn't make it to a second draft of the script, because it's just another, well, it would have added on like another fucking 15 minutes to the movie, or 20 minutes of this pointless plot cul-de-sac. And it's like, okay, well, what does this have to do with the 5 people she's going after? Why should we concern ourselves about the twin sister of the fucking Help, of one of the members of the... It's too much. It's too self-indulgent. And he literally said that when it was in the draft, it was either going to be Yuki's Revenge, or it was going to be the big fight sequence that we get in Kill Bill 1. And 1 had to win out because they didn't have the budget to do 2. And it was strange. They were shooting sort of like video game guns at each other, and even when they got shot, it wasn't like red blood. It was like blue pixels, and I had no idea what's going on. Yuki downs this what's like fucking Titan or Venom that juices Bane up, and sends her hyper, and she goes full on like anime and 2D graphics and whatnot. It was strange. The only bit that I appreciated from this was the fact that Yuki pulls out a grenade and throws it at the bride, who ducks behind the pussy wagon. And then the bride sees that it's about to go off, and she's like, shit, and makes a dash for it. But it blows up the pussy wagon. And I was like, oh, okay, well, now when we watch Kill Bill 2 and she says, my pussy wagon died on me, I guess we can infer that it blew the fuck up. And that's why she doesn't have it in the second half of the film.
Oh, yeah, I just think it was weird over the top. Like, why was it so over the top? Like, because I know it's a very anime movie, and I know there's things that don't work, things like that. But it was a little bit like, yeah, but this is a bit too much. It was a bit, yeah. I think.
Well, we know the reason why now. So this was actually released on the 30th of November, so relatively recently, and has been attached to only select screenings of Kill Bill: The Whole Bloody Affair. This was done because Tarantino made some kind of deal with Fortnite to get some Kill Bill characters. And I know when he announced the whole bloody affair, I think I linked it to you. Go-Go was like a playable character or something you could play as.
Yeah.
This was done through that company, the ones who do Fortnite. So essentially it's Fortnite graphics, and that's why you get blue pixels instead of blood, because when you shoot people in Fortnite, it's fucking blue pixels. You got people dressed as sharks, as a moth, as a banana costume. It's
I don't know. It was a strange addition, wasn't it? I think it was a funny little kind of like but it's not. It was a funny thing.
I could have done. My eyes could have gone my whole life without seeing that sequence. It was just it was bizarre, and it just seemed a little bit self-indulgent. And I'm like, everyone has a price, even Tarantino. And the fucking Fortnite came after him, and he signed his name on the dotted line, and we got this. And there's a reason that certain things don't make it to a second draft. And after watching this, I was like,
they had Babe Metal playing in it.
They did. What is significant is the actress who played Go-Go returned to do the voice for Yuki, and Uma Thurman came back. So after 20 years, I guess in a way, she has reprised the character. Probably not in the way that some people want. If people do want a Kill Bill 3 and are clamoring for that, and you've got Nikki and Ellie Driver or whatnot, but we got the bride back in 2025, and it was through Fortnite.
I would want a Kill Bill 3 is because I think Elle deserves to die. And also, I want to see how they would write her in with a plot with no eyes. I'm curious.
She's going to be like Palpatine in episode 9.
Yeah, I'm curious how that would work with no eyes. But I just want to see her die. That's why I think that's the biggest mistake of the movie.
Ellie's got no eyes and Sophie's got no arms. That's
actually true. Yeah,
heaven, isn't it?
She's got no arms. But I think the biggest mistake of Kill Bill Volume 2 has always been that with Elle. That's always been my biggest thing that I've always been like. One is almost a flawless movie. The only reason I say almost is because I guarantee if I overthink it, I can find something. But it's pretty much a flawless movie. Part 2, that's my biggest thing with it. I can take or leave. That's not the right phrase, but I like the stuff with Bud that I've said. It's a bit weird. But that it's fine. It's fine. I'm not mad at it. The Elle thing, I do not like. She does not finish her off. I think that's so out of character. And even with a 3, you wouldn't be able to change that because she still would have done that. But you get to see her die, I guess. I don't know. But yeah.
There were some things that were a bit head scratching for me. When the bride wakes up in hospital. Well, number one, who's been keeping her? They've kept her on life support, essentially. I know she's in comatose, but she's on life support for 4 years. Now, who's paying those medical bills? And you could go, well, maybe Bill is paying.
He felt bad. That's where his money went.
Aye, there you go. That's a bit of law. If you say, well, maybe Bill's paying the bills. I didn't mean to do that, but there we go. I said it at 1 a.m. He clearly isn't, because he sends Ellie in to fucking murder her and then calls her very, very convenient. If he'd have called her 1 second later, she was about to depress that injector.
Shouldn't Elle have just done it and been like, you called me too late. I'm sorry, I've done it already.
Sneeze. Shit. Oh, shit. Sorry. Yeah, it's done. So it can't be him, because at that point, he wants her dead. He's planning her demise. So it can't be him. So who's paying the bills to just keep her on life support? Anyway, when she wakes up...
What if, actually? So, fuck the extended anime sequence. It's pretty Ricky, because he's going, nah, we want you to go and kill... Nah, maybe that's it. It was him doing it. That's what it was.
When the bride wakes up, she looks at her hands, and it does this extreme close-up of her hands, and she says, 4 years. How does she know it's
when did she become a palm reader? I did think that. I was like, when, you know what I mean? But it's the lines in your hands for palm reading shit, and I don't know.
It's just not like a tree, though. You know how trees get the extra.
Yeah, I know, but it's something you can see someone's age. I don't know, but it works.
She could probably tell that she looks a bit older. Maybe I've never looked at my hands and gone, those hands are 4 years older than they were before.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
You can apparently tell. I don't know how, but apparently you can with the lines. But I don't know.
We've got HLB in the comments who says Tarantino never misses. His filmography is flawless. There is a death proof in there, which I would disagree with you a little bit on there. But for all intents and purposes, all of his other films are fucking great. HLB says there should be some feet in the thumb.
Do you know what's funny? When which bit was it? I think it's where she's doing the wiggle your big toe.
I did hear
someone went, Tarantino.
I did hear that too.
That was cool. That was fun.
What else was I going to say? There are other moments in the film as well where I think that the bride has clearly been trained for years. We don't actually get told for how long, but she says, like, when will I see you again? And he says, well, at least for the first year, you're going to have to warm up to him. But for you, it might take even longer. So I'm like, did she train with him for like fucking 5 years? Like, how long does it take to get proficient in fucking martial arts? She could have been there for like a decade. We don't know how long she was meant to be there. And I think in that moment, she is meant to be like a teenager, the kind of dress her up. Like she kind of acts a bit more girly and naive. A little bit, I've always thought, in those flashback sequences with Bud. Obviously,
I'd say like 3 years.
Yeah.
Only because of how harsh she is every day, and he probably wants to get rid of her. Then you're doing it quickly.
Yeah.
And also, she did do it really quickly. Like, you could see he was quite happy with her quite early on. So I would say about 3 years. I don't know.
So I always thought, so did every member of the Deadly Viper assassination gang have to go through this? We know that Bill went through it. We know that Ellie and the bride went through it. So I'm thinking, like, did Vanita Green also go through it? And Bud?
Can't imagine Bud doing that.
I can't imagine Vanita Green doing it, because I think she would throw some sass his way.
Yeah, she would throw some proper black woman sass and like,
yeah,
she would do that thing. Nah.
It's like, you can kiss my motherfucking ass, Pam, eh? Like, and then,
just walk off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing I was going to say. Yeah, so she's trained with Pai Mei for however many years. She's like this ultimate ninja, badass, secret agent, infiltrator and whatnot. Why does she rush the door to Bud in the camper van? She's all proper methodical. She camps out underneath it. She does peer through the door, and she can see that he's trained on the door in like a rocking chair. Now, she probably thinks, well, I've got the drop on him. He's listening to his music. He's just sat there. But he is sat in front of that door like he's expecting someone. And she knows that he's sort of like peering through the window. So I don't get why she just sort of rushes the front door. And then obviously she gets immediately hit with... I just think you'd be more methodical. You'd wait until morning until he steps out, and go for the legs, or cut up from like underneath. I don't know. I feel like she would have a different plan than just, I'm just going to rush the front door. You know what I mean? So, and then she obviously gets hit with a shotgun at point blank range.
I always thought they should have hired Warwick Davis to be the dude that helps him in the grave. Because when he goes, help me out the grave, I think it would have been great if it had been like Warwick Davis.
Do you see the skeleton in the casket on the right hand side? The corpse of the exhumed body. Do you see that?
No.
Yeah, there's the skeleton in the coffins there on the right hand side when they dig it up.
Oh, I didn't see it. No, I was
I'm trying to think, were there any other bits? So it was just like little bits like that, really. I'm like, who was paying the bills? Oh, and the bit with Buck as well. How there's that sort of flashback where she suddenly remembers who Buck is. If she was comatose, how would she know what's going on? How would she be able to, my name's Buck and I'm here to fuck? Like, how would she remember that?
That is a good point. That is a very good point.
So there's just little bits like that. And I don't know if that was part of... Because apparently that scene was going to be more developed and more fleshed out and a lot more grotesque. And Uma Thurman's mentioned it in an interview saying there was meant to be more there. I've always got the impression there was more to the tongue ripping scene, because it does abruptly cut to black. And then we cut back in and he's dead on the floor. And that works and it's effective. But I've always kept thinking, like, I wonder if there was going to be like an extra bit there. But apparently it was going to be way worse. Way worse, she said. So
I always found the hospital scene very horrific. I say horrific, like, because it's very horror-like. The eerie music, the way the nurses are dressed with the hats. Yeah, and I always found that as a kid quite scary. Like, I found that like the scariest part. And when she pulls on his lip or his tongue or whatever, and it goes black, I always found it very disturbing. And she bashes the guy's head in. I always found it like kind of like a horror movie sort of thing. It was always the bit that I found creepiest when I was a kid.
It's almost like this sort of like green filter to it a little bit. Yeah. The bit with the mosquito or the fly that lands on her arm. There's a mosquito, isn't it? And it does like the extreme close up of like the thing sucking her blood out of her arm. It's all a little bit weird and uncomfortable. It's a fucking horrible scene. Like, when you get older and appreciate it, but like when I was watching it, I didn't know all the ins and outs of everything that was going on with that scene, but it's fucking horrible. It's so mean-spirited towards her. That's gone on for like 4 years. But this is what Don Bluth said about his animated films. He says, people can take anything as long as you have a happy ending. And I feel like Tarantino did that with this.
Yeah, there was a happy ending. It was.
It's a lovely little ending. I still need to watch Shogun Assassin. Every time I've watched this film since I watched it back in 2004, I've always been fascinated to watch that film, and it's still on my list. So one day we'll get around to watching it.
I think I was going to say, I think the order of so we were talking about obviously the how everything's in a different order. I think the order works again. I know we've already said it works really well, but for instance, it starts with Anita Green. It just introduces you to what kind of movie
pretty
this
low
is,
key,
and how it's the kind of movie it is, how it's done, and then it's like, right, okay. So then it goes to how she found these people, and it's quite. I always think that was a good move, putting that first. The only thing is, obviously, she doesn't go in with her sword, which obviously I know it would ruin it if she did, but she goes into bud with her sword already. So there's no sword at the beginning. You think she would, I don't know.
Well, you think she could just go around just doing the eye snatch or the throat snatch
or
the 5-point palm or the punch through someone's torso. So she just opens the door and done.
Yeah, next person.
To just move on. So yeah, some abilities don't really carry over, do they? There's also bits where she gets completely sliced up the back. Well, she gets sliced on the shoulder by Go-Go's Morning Star thing that she's swinging around, and then she gets the most horrific slice up the back, and blood just starts pouring out of her back. And you think that would be hundreds of stitches there, and she just shrugs it off. Did she get that fixed? I feel like she would have to, because she'd bleed to death or it'll get infected or something.
My favourite shot there was when Go-Go dies with the blood coming out of her eyes.
Yeah,
that's my favourite shot.
It's a cool shot. There's so many. Do you have one favourite singular moment? Let's just go for favourite line and favourite moment. I know it's really difficult because there's so many. Or dialogue exchange or something like that.
Well, my favourite shot is the Go-Go bit with the blood. Crying thing I thought was so cool. That's one of my favorite things in any movie. What was the other one? A favorite moment. See, I really like one of my favorite scenes is when O-Ren is where she takes that guy's head off and she runs across the table. I really like the shot of you see her feet just running like that. I think that's a really, really great shot. I think the whole scene is great. That is probably one of them. I would say that's my favorite scene overall. Dialogue, that's hard. That's a hard one. There's a lot of good dialogue in it. Do you know what? One thing reminded me of, I don't know why, but it reminds me of, what's Uma Thurman's character in Pulp Fiction? What's she called?
Mia Wallace.
That's it. When she gets a sword and then she reads out Bud's one, and she just reads out the line, and it just goes click back into the thing, and she smiles. For some reason, she looked like Mia from Pulp Fiction. She just snapped back into that character for a second. I see it every time, I don't know why.
The bit where she says, to get even Steven, she says, I'd have to go up to Nikki's room, kill her, and wait for your husband to come back. She says, that'd be square. And I know she does that in Pulp Fiction, where she drives up to the Jack Rabbit Slims with Travolta. She says, "Oh, come on, don't be square," and she draws a little square on the screen. So I've always reminded that's reminded me of that a little bit. Favorite scene for me, I've sort of got two. Well, the whole film, but the whole ending of Kill Bill 1. No, but my favorite scene is the bit with Hattori Hanzo. I love that sequence. I love that chapter, but specifically the bit where she goes up to the loft and sees all the swords. We talked about that earlier, but I also really like that sword ceremony afterwards, because you have this sort of upstairs downstairs kind of thing between Hattori Hanzo and the guy who fetches the tea, and they talk about oh, if I was in the military, I'd be the general right now, and he's like, yeah, well, I'd be the emperor, and you'd still fetch the sake and fetch the tea. But then he shows a serious side, because he's helping him in the ceremony, and he's very serious and in full regalia and whatnot. So I do like that scene. That's probably
my favorite line from that is where he just randomly says, "I'm not bald, I shave my head. Understand?"
Understand. And then another scene that I really like is just the whole Pai Mei sequence. I am a sucker for wise old teacher student kind of thing.
Wise old men
like Yoda and Luke and fucking Mr. Miyagi and Daniel San. I love stuff like that when it's done well. and you just really have an appreciation for what a fucking amazing character the bride is. All the shit she has to go through, how determined she is, and just she exemplifies it perfectly in that scene with Pai Mei. And there is that one moment where she almost falters, where she tries to do like a sneaky shot with a rock, but you can tell that Pai Mei has so much fucking like pride in her as like a student, and there is that respect. And he is fucking cruel and torturous, but it's in that moment with the chopsticks, which actually looks like me when I try and use chopsticks. When I go to Wagamama or something, I'm trying to use chopsticks, I look exactly like that. And he just smiles. He's just contented, like I have. And the fact that he teaches the 5-point palm, you know, he teaches no one that, but he taught her. Fucking love that. And he's so great, just like that, just stroking his beard. I could hear some people laughing in the audience at that too. They're probably my favorite 2 bits, but dialogue exchange is really tricky.
Yeah.
It probably would be something with Bill. I fucking love David Carradine in this. And I know, you know, the late David Carradine, it's a little bit awkward how he did actually die. That's going to be forever on his legacy. It's kind of funny. But he's so good in this. And I know he did things like Kung Fu and some like weird fucking B movies. And I like that Tarantino takes his chances on actors like this. Travolta was the same with Pulp Fiction. Before this point, you know, he'd done Saturday Night Fever and he'd done a few other films, but he'd really just dropped off out of the limelight. And then Pulp Fiction brought him back and showed a completely different side to that actor. And I feel like Tarantino did that with David Carradine as well.
Should have played the church man person.
Oh yeah, that was
should have
cool.
been Travolta.
HOV says, "Hey, he died doing what he loved." He did. He let his freak flag fly.
Do you know what I did? I was thinking that when I was watching it today. I was just like, that's funny.
It's the bit where she's getting choked with the chain by Go-Go. I was like, David Carradine's just offset, just like whacking his knob out to this. But he's so great. Like the bit, I do like the final exchange between him and the bride. Yes. I think the music carries a lot of weight with that, the Ennio Morricone score. But yeah, that sort of respect that they have, and still that love that they have for each other in the weird fucked up way. Yeah. I do like that. So it'd either be the church scene, the church flashback, where she meets him outside on the porch and you get the bill reveal. It would either be that, or it would be the stuff at the end, I think sort of hits me the most. Which I feel like you feel that a little bit more once you've experienced it as this one long epic tale that's like 4+ hours. Because when she gets there, she does, oh, fuck, she fucking did it. I think the best acting moment is either the bit where when Uma Thurman wakes up in the hospital bed and she thinks that, you know, she believes that her baby's like dead and, you know, her life's basically been fucking ruined. She just lets out this horrible, distraught wail. It's just so good. And the very end where she's on the bathroom floor and she goes through basically every human emotion possible.
Yeah.
She's so great. Did she get a Best Actress nomination for this film? I feel like she should have done, but I don't know who she was up against around about this time.
I don't know. That was a long time ago. I don't know.
Just in terms of the physicality for the role, and I don't know how long the shoot was for this thing, but my God, when you see it as a complete film, the fact that it was all shot as one thing back to back, all the different sets, all the different places, the stuff that she had to go through, and I know she went through absolute shit on this film. I think there was like a car incident or something, wasn't it, with the brake, and Tarantino was a little bit sort of, oh, it'll be fine, we'll just get it in the film. And I think she crashed it. I think she really fucking hurt herself. Because I think she fell out with Tarantino for a bit after that, didn't she? Or something.
I can't remember.
There was probably some shit at Miramax as well. I mean, Harvey Weinstein's fucking credited on this as well. So, yeah, to my knowledge, it was... I don't know if it's all the black and white stuff where she's driving or when she's going off-road.
Which isn't in this.
No, but apparently he just said, oh, it was either drive down this road, you'll be fine, or I think the car hadn't been properly checked or the brakes didn't work on it or something. But yeah, she crashed it, and I think she... Oh, that was it. Yeah, driving through a jungle like crazy. That's probably where she's on her way to Bill at the end, I would imagine, isn't it?
I was thinking on the way to... What's his name? The pimp dude. What's his name again?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yes. No, it would be that. It would be that. Yeah, Esteban.
Because you see it on the road and the proper, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is shit that stuff like that happens. That's the fault of Tarantino. Well, I mean, it always goes back to the director, doesn't it? So it is a shame if they've fallen out from this. But, I mean, if she did come back to do that Yuki's revenge, then I guess they've sort of, squashed the. What do you say? Squash the beef. What's the phrase?
No idea.
I've heard something like that before. But anyway, yeah. So it's just fucking incredible. It is his magnum opus, undoubtedly, just for the length and scope of the film. Just how much is in there.
It's better as one. I prefer it as one like this. It's better.
I could do both. I could honestly, I appreciate watching them in both ways, but this is why I like alternate cuts like this, is to get this different experience and to experiment with different structures. And yeah, that's why I love doing fan editing. And maybe I'll do a Kill Bill edit. I don't know. It's kind of inspired me to do that. Take this as the blueprint and then try and trim it down a little bit to a more conventional length. But
I think it works better as this. I think the pacing's better as well for part 2, especially.
This. Yeah, I didn't really. I was anticipating that major slowdown, especially watching them as one complete thing. But you really don't get that.
How long was it though? To be fair,
so by the time it probably started, it was probably about 10-7, because we had a lot of trailers for this thing. So it was either like a good 20 minutes of trailers and adverts,
and then
whatnot.
You had the fucking
10-7. Then we had like a 15-minute intermission. So that already puts us at like just.
And
then
take
7.
away all the credits and the post bit. How long was the actual movie?
It was probably about just shy of 4. It was probably about 4 hours, maybe. I want to say.
I feel like it was
or
less.
350, something like that. Maybe.
I'm just thinking it could have there are bits that you take out in the sense of if you took out the bit with Bud going into work and like I say replace
Esteban,
it,
get rid of that.
Yeah, there's little bits you could go. I think it could have worked as one movie. Yeah, maybe it wouldn't have sold as much because it would still be 3.9.
Well, that's it. You can't play a film like that as many times in the cinema, can you?
So it would still be 3.9 hours or something. So yeah, it would still. But I think there's a version that could be done that's way more kind of, because anything under 4 hours, I think, is still watchable in one sit.
Mm-hmm.
Anything realistically over 4 hours is where you start getting maybe you can watch it in 2 parts and stuff. But I think there's a version that could work.
Yeah. I know. I'd love to see it. I know that Angry Video Game Nerd did an edit of Kill Bill, but apparently he said that he hasn't got it out there to watch. He trimmed it down to 2 hours, though. I'm thinking that's a little bit excessive. You could probably go for 3 on this. I don't think you need to cut it down that much. But no, I had a great time with this tonight. I think the music as well. I've mentioned this to you about the soundtrack and the songs in there, in that I know that they're all sort of taken and poached and lifted from all different other films and whatnot. But I think through this film, they've almost found a new identity a little bit, because having watched some of the spaghetti westerns after this film, I'll go, oh, that's the song from Kill Bill. And I'm like, no, I know that this is the film that the song originated from, but it's a really effective use of the music. And I want to say as well, Sally Menk, the editor, who I think her last film that she did was Inglourious Bastards, I think. And then she sadly passed away. The editing in this is fucking outstanding. If you think about the reels of film they would have had to have worked with this, or Sally would have had to have worked with this, and the sound effects, that the whooshing, and just how frenetic it all is, but it's staged so well, and the coverage is great. The editing is top fucking notch in this film. And again, I feel like every film after this is trying to be like this, especially Death Proof. You have the Pussy Wagon, and what's the name of the guy? There's Son Number One. He is in Death Proof.
Yeah.
So Death Proof happens in the same universe as this film, apparently. So yeah, interesting. I feel like we could probably say more on Kill Bill, but I feel like I've said everything I can on The Whole Bloody Affair. Would you recommend The Whole Bloody Affair? I mean, you've already said
like Tarantino did. Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's the better watch. If you were to ask my personal opinion, which is the better watch, like I said before, I think this is the best way to watch it without an intermission. If you're going to watch an intermission, just watch 2. Yeah. But I think this is the best way to watch it. I think the pacing works better like this. But like I say, I'd always say there are 2 ways you can watch it. It's just once you watch it one way, you can't unwatch it that way.
Yeah.
And I don't think either are bad in the sense of I do think it's miles better like this, but I don't think watching it the other way would be but you should. Do you know what I mean? It's not but the other way is not good. It's no, the other way is good. I think they work, but like I say, this would be my recommendation. But if someone, for some reason, I say, like, oh, I'm not watching a 4.5 hour movie, then it's like, yeah, watch them the other way. You'll get a reveal in a different sort of way. And it works as 2 movies very, very well. The intro to part 2, where she's driving, she's like, I've got one more person on my, like, that's a really fucking good intro. And obviously you don't get that in 2 parts, because where would it fit? Right at the beginning, I would like to see that right at the beginning. So I know that was Tarantino's original idea. And I think that could work very, very well. A bit better probably than the bloody dress and stuff. I like it. I wouldn't say it would work better in the sense of like, just replace it. I'd like to see it. It's kind of like 2 parts and 1 part. It's like, I would like to see it, and do you know what I mean? Like I said, I think both could work really well. So I think that would be a very good intro for the whole movie. But what I'm saying is, if you would watch it in 2 parts, you get that, and you get the cliffhanger ending. Like, you get so much that's done very, very well. And yeah, it's a great way to watch it. But like I say, you can't unwatch it. So my recommendation would still be one whole thing.
I wonder when the decision was made to split this in half, because the cliffhanger at the end of part 1 with Sophie, that wasn't like a reshoot or anything, I don't think, was it? That would have been filmed as part of...
because it was filmed as 1, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, but it was originally supposed to be 1, wasn't it? That's the thing. So I don't know.
But it didn't strike me as like, that one specific line, that cliffhanger at the end of 1 was, we need to get the actors back in because we've changed our minds now. We're doing a part 1 and 2, and we need a stinger for the ending.
I wonder whether it was sort of like it was being done, and when it was getting somewhere like maybe 3/4 the way through, they still had a lot to go. They went, we're going to do this in 2. And then they were just kind of one of the scenes that was going to be added. And it worked within the time frame that they had for everyone doing it. They were just like, you know what, let's do it like this. It was just something they decided along the way, I think. But yeah, I don't know.
When I think about the additional changes to the whole bloody affair, maybe it's just because it's the one I'm used to. A lot of what I prefer is stuff from the theatrical version, actually, specifically the Volume 1 stuff that I'm talking about. I missed the Klingon proverb from the beginning, for example.
Yeah, I preferred that to what
it was a dedication to a director, wasn't it? Like, you can still have that dedication, but you could have it in the ending credits or something coming up. But I do miss that Klingon proverb a little bit. And it does remind me of Pulp Fiction a little bit, where it opens with a definition of the word pulp as like a fun little quirky thing to open the film with. And I miss the Klingon proverb with this a little bit, because Star Trek does get mentioned later on in the film, where they say that Sophie Fattel's dressed like a Star Trek villain.
Yeah.
What other things? I prefer the shorter anime sequence. I think it was nice to see the new stuff, but I could understand completely why that was removed, and I think it flows better in the theatrical.
I think it flows better, but if I was to watch it again, I'd always put the extended one in there because I did like it. It was fun. Yeah. But yes, I agree.
We've talked about it's cool seeing the Crazy 88 fight with a few additional new shots. I think that kind of fucked with the pacing a little bit in some respects, and we've also expressed interest that we prefer the black and white version than we do the color version. I prefer Sophie only getting one arm cut off, because I swear I was trying to watch out for it on the big screen. It's very difficult to see. When you see her get thrown down the bank to the hospital, I can swear you can still see that she's got one arm, which when you watch this version doesn't make sense because she gets both of her arms cut off. So I kind of prefer... I feel like you've ramped up all of the violence at that point. You've done the Crazy 88 stuff. You've killed O-Ren in a very gory, bloody way. And then as we're falling out, we need to ramp it back down. And then that's like another weird, ultra-violent spike with the Sophie thing a little bit too early on. So I prefer the way that Kill Bill Volume 1 ends. I do like the cliffhanger ending to 1. But the thing that I miss the most from 1 is that additional stuff where she's composing the list as she's on the plane, and it flashes back to Hattori Hanzo, where he says that, as you say, revenge isn't a road or something, it's a forest, and like a forest, it's easy to lose yourself. Just that additional stuff, which we unfortunately lose with this version. I think the positives, though, is that it's nice to see it just flow as one entity. You don't really get that tonal change as much as I was expecting you would, which you do get when you watch it as 2 separate films, because you sort of come into Kill Bill 2 as a brand new separate thing, and you're thinking, well, this has got to top the original, right? Like the sequel's got to be better. when you shouldn't really view it like that. You should view it as an act 1 and act 2 of one complete thing, which of course you get with the whole bloody affair. And I do think that if you haven't seen it before, the twist reveal at the end will get you. And that's really, really cool to discover that moment at the same time that the main character does too. So my positives, I think, fall more towards the structure and the reveal in part 2 rather than any of the additional new stuff that comes with part 1. So I think my perfect cut exists somewhere between the theatrical version of Kill Bill Volume 1 flowing all in.
Why do I feel like he will do a volume 3 at some point? He'll do his last movie, then he'll do a volume 3, and he'll have Zendaya play Nikki so he can get her feet in there. And Zendaya's in everything. Why do I have a feeling he'll do that?
God forbid. But we was talking about this. If he did a Kill Bill Volume 3, I feel like BB would be recast to Mia Hawke.
Yeah, she 100% would be.
Which I'd be fine with. I thought the actress who played BB was really good, and I know she is still working and is doing films.
Because Mia
now,
Hawke looks exactly the same as Uma Thurman, so it would make
and she's
sense.
Big now with Stranger Things and whatnot. She's sort of yeah,
Tarantino knows her and he likes her feet already. Like it's already a thing. So
I hope we don't get a Kill Bill Volume 3. It's like the story's told, complete story with this. There are some seeds where it could lead into something else, but we've gone over 20 years right now, and I don't want a continuation. I don't want another one of these sequels that's made so many years later, and it's fucking terrible.
Yeah, it would.
Not everything can be a Top Gun Maverick, and you can't call it Kill Bill Volume 3 because Bill's fucking dead in the movie and in real life. So, and then I was hearing ideas that Tarantino had to do a Kill Bill prequel with a young Bill where he meets Hattori Hanzo because Hattori Hanzo is his mentor, but then Pai Mei is also his mentor, and meeting Esteban and collecting all of these father figures that she mentions. Fine, why? I don't need it because we know where it all leads to. So you have to be careful with prequels, and I just feel like that's a little bit.
Yeah, I don't need to see where Bill got it. Like we don't need. I don't care.
I want to see him do something different for his last film. And why does he have to stop at 10? Like what is compelling him? He mentions in this film that retirement is the greatest killer.
Yes. Yeah, that is a good
thing. And it's just, if he feels like, I want to go out on top, and it's like, well, you already made Death Proof, which was fucking terrible. So, like, a god can bleed, and you have made a bad film before. It's like, well, just don't make a bad film. Just keep making good films. Why would you stop at 10? I don't know. It's just... He's one of the only good directors working in the business today, and I don't want to see him go. Just keep making movies. Be like Scorsese or Clint Eastwood, who's like 95 or 96 and still making movies. Just keep doing it.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood's still alive.
Fucking jinxed it now, haven't we? Speaking of films that I want to see on the big screen, because this is very much like Western infused. I really need them to get the Dollars trilogy on at the cinema. Fistful of Dollars for a few dollars more, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly would be fucking remarkable to see on the big screen. I'm holding out hope because I feel like I've seen everything else I want to see on the big screen. I've seen the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I've seen all 6 Star Wars films, all the Star Wars films that matter. Indiana Jones trilogy I recently did this year, and now Kill Bill and stuff like that. It's like I need the Dollars trilogy. Once I've watched that, I can go, I've seen everything I really want to see on the big screen now in terms of older films. But I think that would do it for our review on the whole bloody affair. So I don't know how long this is playing in cinemas. I think it is getting a few extra dates here and there. I know the Prince Charles Cinema, because that sold out in minutes, I think it was. They've added some additional dates around like Boxing Day, I think, or possibly into the new year. But I have heard that this is getting a digital download at some point, and because Tarantino likes his physical media, I'm hoping that maybe we get a 4K release. I don't have a 4K player, but I will gladly buy this on 4K in the hope that eventually I do get a 4K player and a 4K TV. And then we can do a proper whole bloody affair screening again without the intermission. Which will be nice. Intermission. We'll come back to it. But no, this was really good fun tonight, and I'm glad that we got to see this, because as I say, I never thought we'd get this. When they mentioned, it was going to be in the US I thought, oh, here we go. The UK is going to miss out again, and we
Yeah.
kept checking the Odeon app and cinemas all the time, and
It just wasn't there until like 2 days later, I think.
it was. We still wasn't sure if we were going to get it, but we got it and we saw it, and it was good fun. It's good fun watching this movie every single time. In the meantime, if you have seen Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair, or even if you haven't, if you just like Kill Bill, let us know your thoughts on it. Favorite scenes, characters, lines, moments, anything. I know this was like a really unsociable hour that we did this review tonight, but we wanted to get our review out there as soon as we were out the cinema while it was fresh. And do consider subscribing to the channel for more movie reviews, discussions, and live streams. We will be back on Wednesday, continuing our Studio Ghibli retrospective, where I think we have decided now to do the Red Turtle. So instead of the other one we were going to do, what was it, the Earwig and the Worm, we're going to do the Red Turtle, which will give us 2 more to do after that, which will take us right up to Christmas. So big thank you to everyone who has tuned in and commented tonight. Really appreciate you guys. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next video. Take care.